Nobody in the courtroom expected the old janitor to become the center of attention that morning. At first glance, it looked like a simple workplace dispute. A wealthy CEO in a tailored navy suit sat confidently at the plaintiff's table, barely hiding his impatience. Across from him sat an elderly janitor named Walter Briggs. His gray uniform looked worn from years of use, and his hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the sleeves of his jacket. The contrast between the two men couldn't have been more obvious. The CEO, Ethan Calloway, owned one of the largest commercial real estate companies in the city. Expensive watch, polished shoes, calm smile. Walter looked exhausted, and Ethan noticed it immediately. "You're telling me this man damaged private property?" Judge Judy asked while flipping through the case file. Ethan leaned back comfortably. "Not just damaged property, Your Honor. He caused thousands of dollars in delays because he refused to follow instructions." Walter opened his mouth slightly, but Judge Judy raised a hand. "You'll get your turn." The courtroom stayed quiet. Ethan continued speaking confidently, almost too confidently. "He worked in my building for years. We gave him opportunities, but eventually he became careless." Walter lowered his eyes. Judge Judy noticed it, not sadness, not guilt. Something else. It looked more like disappointment. And that tiny emotional shift caught her attention immediately. "You've worked there how long?" she asked Walter. 22 years, he answered softly. The audience shifted slightly in their seats. 22 years. That wasn't a temporary employee. That was a lifetime. Ethan interrupted quickly. "And during those years, Your Honor, we were generous with him." Judge Judy slowly turned toward him. "Nobody asked you that." The courtroom went silent for a second. Ethan cleared his throat. Walter still hadn't looked up. And then Judge Judy noticed something strange. The old janitor kept touching the inside pocket of his jacket, as if he was making sure something important was still there. That tiny movement changed everything, because suddenly, Judge Judy wasn't looking at this as a simple money dispute anymore. She was looking at Walter, really looking at him. And she could already tell there was something missing from Ethan's story. Something important, something nobody else in the courtroom had noticed yet. Judge Judy folded her glasses carefully. "Mr. Calloway, explain exactly why we're here." Ethan sat straighter. 3 months ago, we were preparing for a major investor event inside our downtown property. Important guests, important clients. Hours before the event, Mr. Briggs shut down the entire west lobby without authorization. Walter quietly shook his head. Ethan continued anyway. "He claimed there was a maintenance issue. There wasn't. We lost time, money, and credibility." Judge Judy looked toward Walter. "Did you shut down the lobby?" "Yes, and why?" Walter hesitated. That hesitation changed the energy in the room, not because it looked dishonest, because it looked painful. "There was water leaking near exposed wiring," Walter finally said. Ethan laughed quietly under his breath. Judge Judy heard it instantly. "You think safety is funny?" "No, Your Honor. I think exaggeration is expensive." A few people in the audience exchanged looks. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. "You had inspectors verify the area afterward?" "Yes, and no electrical damage." Judge Judy nodded slowly, but something still bothered her. Walter still kept touching that inside pocket, again and again, almost nervously. "Mr. Briggs," she asked carefully, "why does it feel like you're not telling me something?" Walter swallowed hard. For the first time, Ethan looked slightly uncomfortable. The old janitor looked toward the floor before speaking. "Because none of this was really about the lobby." The courtroom became completely still. Judge Judy narrowed her eyes. "Then what was it about?" Walter looked toward Ethan for only a second, and that single glance carried years of exhaustion. 2 weeks before the event, I warned management about faulty wiring behind the walls." Ethan immediately interrupted. "That's irrelevant." Judge Judy slammed her pen onto the desk. "When I decide something is irrelevant, I'll let you know." Silence. Walter continued softly. "I filed maintenance reports 3 different times." Judge Judy looked at Ethan. "Did you receive those reports?" "We receive hundreds of reports." "That wasn't my question." Ethan paused, and that pause was all Judge Judy needed. The audience could feel the shift happening now. The confidence Ethan walked in with was slowly disappearing. Walter finally reached into his jacket pocket. The courtroom watched carefully. He pulled out folded papers, old papers, wrinkled from being carried around too many times. Judge Judy motioned for the bailiff to bring them over. And the moment she opened the first page, her entire expression changed. Because those weren't ordinary complaints. They were signed maintenance warnings. Tailed ones. Dates. Locations. Safety concerns. Everything documented. Judge Judy looked up slowly. You ignored this. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. We assessed the situation internally. Walter's voice cracked for the first time. They told me to stop causing problems. The room fell silent again, but this time it felt heavier, because suddenly, this wasn't about property damage anymore. It was about whether someone had spent 22 years protecting a building nobody else cared enough to protect. Judge Judy kept staring at the reports. Then she noticed one tiny detail, a date. She flipped back to the original lawsuit paperwork, then back to Walter's report, and suddenly her expression hardened. Interesting. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Judge Judy removed her glasses slowly. The investor event happened exactly 3 days after this final warning report. Nobody spoke, she continued. And according to this document, the leak was directly beneath temporary lighting equipment installed for the event. Walter nodded quietly. I was scared somebody would get hurt. Ethan tried stepping in again. There was never any actual danger. Judge Judy cut him off immediately. You don't get to rewrite history because you got lucky. The courtroom became completely still. For the first time, Ethan looked nervous. Real nervous. Judge Judy leaned forward. You sued a 72-year-old janitor because he interrupted a party? It was a corporate function. No, it was a party with investors. Ethan's face nutted. Then Judge Judy asked the question nobody expected. Mr. Briggs, why didn't you retire? Walter looked surprised, then embarrassed. My wife got sick a few years ago. The room softened instantly. I needed the insurance. Even Ethan stopped talking. Walter continued carefully. She passed away last winter. A long silence filled the courtroom. She always told me, if you see something dangerous, fix it. Don't walk away. Judge Judy looked down for a moment, then back at Ethan, and suddenly the entire case looked different. Not because of paperwork, because of character. One man protected people even when nobody listened. The other protected appearances. And everyone in the courtroom could feel it now. Judge Judy lifted the maintenance report one final time. This lawsuit should never have existed. Ethan attempted one last defense. We followed procedure. Judge Judy's response came instantly. No, you followed convenience. The audience stayed completely silent. Walter lowered his eyes again, clearly overwhelmed, not because he had won, because somebody had finally listened. Judge Judy organized the papers slowly. Then she looked directly at Ethan Calloway. I've seen wealthy people make mistakes before. That's normal. What concerns me is how quickly you tried to blame the one person who actually acted responsibly. Ethan said nothing. For 22 years, this man cleaned your buildings, reported safety issues, and protected your employees. She paused, and the moment he became inconvenient, you dragged him into court. Walter's eyes became watery, but he stayed quiet. Judge Judy continued. You called him careless. Then she lifted the maintenance report slightly. These papers tell a very different story. The courtroom remained silent. Ethan finally spoke again, but this time his voice lacked confidence. We believed the situation was under control. Judge Judy shook her head gently. No, you believed image mattered more than caution. That line stayed hanging in the room, heavy, unavoidable. Then came the final ruling. This court dismisses the plaintiff's claim entirely. Walter closed his eyes briefly, but Judge Judy wasn't finished. And frankly, Mr. Calloway, you owe this man an apology. Ethan looked stunned, not angry, not defensive, just stunned, because for the first time during the entire hearing, nobody in the room saw him as powerful anymore. They saw him as small. Walter slowly stood up, preparing to leave. Then something unexpected happened. Ethan finally looked toward him properly, not at his uniform, not at his age, at him as a person. I didn't know about your wife, Ethan said quietly. Walter nodded once. I know. That answer hit harder than any argument in the courtroom, because it revealed the real issue. Nobody had bothered to know him at all. Judge Judy watched the exchange silently. Then Walter picked up his worn jacket carefully and started walking toward the exit. The courtroom stayed unusually quiet as he left, not because of the ruling, because everyone understood something at the exact same moment. The old janitor had walked into court looking powerless. But in the end, he was the only person in the room who had actually done the right thing. And Judge Judy noticed it long before anyone else did.